Tucson, Arizona. Night of November 30th.
Sunrise, 7:06 a.m. You hop in your Audi and drive from your penthouse to the Viper. You tune the Audi's radio to hear the news. This is Mel Pomini Chen, and you're listening to Mel at Midnight. Do the dead walk among us? One man says yes. Greg Halden, professor of philosophy at the University of Arizona, claims that he has uncovered an elaborate conspiracy of computerized deception stretching back decades that has allowed criminals, illegal immigrants, and scions of the moneyed international elite to establish new identities as the recently deceased. Professor Halden plans to unveil his findings once his Freedom of Information Act request gains him access to a federal database that has tracked immigration and deaths for the past 65 years. You have a long trip ahead of you, and the light has barely faded in the west by the time you roll into the nightclub parking lot. You wait for a moment until you remember that the guy whose name you never learned, the one with the Ed Hardy shirts, was apparently the Second Inquisition spy. You never learned what happened to him. You head inside. The Viper isn't open yet, and without its crowds and with the regular lights shining on the bars and dance floor, it looks tacky and cheap. Alexander is behind one of the bars. He waves you over with an archaic beckoning gesture. Your Lobo snuffles around under tables for discarded food. You have been warned to stay off the highways, yes? Alexander asks. And you got rid of your phone? You shrug. You're here for information on the job, not so Alexander can interrogate you. And the job doesn't sound easy. I have the GPS coordinates, you tell Alexander. Is there anything else I need to know? Watch out for Mr. Sims people, Alexander says. They might know the general location of Professor Knowles's cache and try to follow you to the exact coordinates. They don't know I'm working with Julian. Do you think Mr. Sim will attack me on the road? Let's see what Alexander knows. So Biosphere Zero is where Jasper Knowles ran experiments on people? I'm not really looking forward to seeing the horrors of this place. Is there still an active presence at Biosphere Zero? I'm not worried about GuardSim wondering if there's anything valuable there. What do you know about Jasper Knowles? I'm curious about what this cache might contain. The federal government ceased operation in 1976 and liquidated the experiment subjects, Alexander says. Jasper Knowles conducted research there until quite recently, I'm told, but the place is deserted now. You wonder if there's anything worth salvaging from an experiment that ended in the Ford administration. One of Dove's retainers beckons for Alexander, and the old ghoul uses her as an excuse to avoid answering any further questions. You circle back to the most important question: where do you shelter during the day? You can't make the whole trip in one night on back roads, and the Camarilla is in such chaos that they can't tell anyone you're coming. Wrapping yourself up inside your car is possible, but it takes skill to secure oneself, and cunning to know where to hide where you won't be disturbed. Because if you're disturbed, there goes eternity. And you can't just stay at the first motel you see now. The Inquisition is everywhere, and though you're loaded down with false license plates and fake kids, anything unusual will draw attention. Trouble here will expose you to the sun, and almost certainly draw enough notice to violate the Masquerade. It's better to avoid settlements and the endless police patrols. I'll use my survival skills and patience to find a cave or some other shelter outside of town. Comrades plus survival, I'll head into the wilds outside of town and sink into the earth to avoid discovery. Protean. I head for the largest town and stick to the hardest streets I can find, sleeping in sewers or underpasses to stay out of trouble. Wit plus streetwise. I use one of my many falsehoods and bluff my way through check-in at a mid-range motel. A few easy lies will keep the Inquisition off my trail. Man plus subterfuge. It should be easy to throw some money around and stay someplace nice. I'll have to rely on charm and persuade people not to pay much attention to me. Char plus persuasion. There must be a cheap place I can stay that won't ask too many questions. I cruise the rundown parts of town, feeling out some place that won't ask questions or rat me out. Wit plus awareness. Working quickly so I'm not spotted, I break into an abandoned building and stay there. Dex plus clandestine. I investigate local newspapers and websites to find empty but unsecured buildings where I can stay. Int plus academics/investigation. I use my tech skills to rig up a portable shelter inside my car. Int plus technology. Do I know any blood sorcery that will keep me safe? What about Julian? Can he help me? Julian. You consider the best place to stop for the day. It looks like your best bet is north of Flagstaff, near the Hopi Reservation. From there you should be able to reach a few nearby towns. The drive is difficult, since you don't want to get too close to Flagstaff. You're forced to circle around the city, but you still hit more traffic than you'd like. There isn't a lot of town out here, but there's still a bad part of town. You drive slowly down a seedy, badly lit stretch of road, past a shuttered nail salon, a burned-out gas station, and a chain pizza restaurant you remember from your childhood and haven't thought about since. The motels here are dingy and unpleasant, surviving on misappropriated government funds for halfway houses and addict shelters. But they'll take your business, they accept cash, and as long as you can feel out the right sort of place they won't look your way twice. You check out a few places, but they're dangerously sleazy, and you don't like how many people are looking at you and in awe. But finally you find a rundown apartment with a few rooms for nightly let. The place is full of addicts and the homeless, and the atmosphere aches with pain and loneliness but not curiosity, and that's all you care about. You hand over a few crumpled bills, and the clerk hands you an actual metal key to your room. It's cleaner than you were expecting, despite the smell of old cigarettes, but you can't quite cover the window with the thin curtains. Your Lobo curls up in front of the door, and you crawl into the tub. As you get back on the road heading west, you scan your rearview mirrors for signs of pursuit. But it looks like you're clear. You head for the deep desert. To avoid major cities, you spend a few hours taking back roads, then head north past the Grand Canyon to the southwest corner of Utah, a route that keeps you away from Las Vegas. The side roads are beautiful in the starlight. Then it's a straight shot north up Route 93, a landscape of low scrubs with low mountains in the distance. Everything here is low and humble, except the sky, which is so vast that you half expect a second moon to rise. But it's just you and the stars and the moon, all the way to the coordinates. A few old barns dot the otherwise empty landscape. You memorize their locations in case you need cover for the day. Soon you pass faded warning restricted no trespassing photography is prohibited signs and a fallen chain link fence. You go off-road to reach the exact coordinates. A black ruin rises against the desert's scarhead, An irregular hulk of poured concrete and broken glass. The huge ruined pile looks worthless, though who knows? Maybe there's something valuable inside. There are fresh tire tracks on the path ahead. That's not good. You approach obliquely, lights off, and spot a GMC Savannah conversion van with its parking and interior lights on. A half-dozen people are in or near it. This place was supposed to be deserted. You spend a few minutes watching the group while Inoue circles the campus of Biosphere Zero. 6 people, 3 men, 3 women, ranging in age from their 20s to their 60s. Phones, laptops, dedicated recording equipment. Enough food and supplies for a week. Ropes, crowbars, helmets with attached lights. Their equipment is expensive, well made, and new. They're equipped for serious exploration. I'm here for one reason, to get the cash back to Leto. Can I get close to the coordinates without these mortals noticing? What about the actual structure of Biosphere Zero? What can I see? This place might have been horrific, but I am fascinated by what people tried to learn here. Can I be sure these mortals aren't hunters? I look for signs that they're here for vampire hunting. The main building is a sprawling brutalist pile, shapeless from any angle. You remember the glass and white steel of the biosphere to ecology experiment from when you were still alive, but this structure is older and uglier, a heap of poured concrete, abraded by the desert winds, its high narrow windows mostly broken. Other buildings, equally dismal, make Biosphere Zero resemble a particularly grim community college campus. And if your coordinates are correct, Professor Knowles's cache should be somewhere in the main building. More intact than I thought, you catch from one of the mortals. Yeah. I thought it would be stripped clean. Or guarded. Why hasn't anyone? The desert wind picks up, and the voices fade. Stop double and triple checking everything, a grey-haired man in faded denim tells the youngest member of the crew. A woman with a shaggy pink pixie cut. Let's get inside. Rick still hasn't shown up, the woman with the pink hair says. There's a brief conversation about Rick, who is apparently their computer guy. You listen carefully. Another older man, this one in tactical pants and a windbreaker, takes a bolt cutter and snips the chain strung across a metal door. As he moves, you notice he's got a concealed pistol in his jacket. A younger guy with a bushy yellow beard is the first through. He scans the interior with a flashlight, then shrugs and heads inside. The others start moving in. They're moving toward the coordinates of your cache. Not fast, but eventually they'll get there. There's no reason I should hide from a bunch of mortals. I introduce myself as a courier, just not a vampire courier, and try to persuade them to trust me. Comma plus persuasion, I lie and pretend I'm an academic journalist. That should let me travel with this crew and see what they're doing. Man plus lower of subterfuge and academics/technology. I roll up hard and demand to know what they're doing here, hinting that I have authority to get them in trouble. That'll get them talking. Man plus intimidation, I'm not going to reveal myself just yet. I follow and watch them from a distance. Staying out of sight should be easy, though I might not hear much. Wit plus awareness, my enhanced senses will let me spy on the group from afar. Auspex, I sneak behind them and stay close. That way I can hear what they're talking about, though it'll be harder than hanging back. Dex plus clandestine. They all file inside and set up lights to explore this room. It's a reception area that leads directly to a high-ceilinged atrium. They take recordings, make notes, check maps. Inoya takes the lead, utterly silent. You remain in the shadows, silent and still, and watch them work. Though you have to remain far away to avoid notice, you overhear enough to put names to faces. Stephanie, a tall gaunt woman in well-worn clothes, and Janet, a 20-something with a pink pixie cut, are journalists. Tex, they really call him Tex, and Ophelia are scientist-psychologists, which makes sense for a biosphere. Tex has a big blonde beard and a big steel crowbar and is excited to knock down some doors. Ophelia, middle-aged, small and wiry, always wears a helmet with a headlamp and carries the ropes. Paul works security and keeps everyone organized. He's the older guy with the concealed weapon. The other old guy is Antonio. He's apparently a lawyer, with a focus on immigrant rights. You can't get close enough to learn what they're doing here, but they have no idea that you're here, and as they move into the atrium, you realize that you can explore relatively freely. After making sure you can avoid the explorers, you reluctantly turn your phone's GPS tracking on and head for the exact coordinates. You pass through the grey and grumbling atrium, to a section of interior wall that's given way. Faded paint stripes run along the ground and walls to direct people, but the signs are all gone. Picking your way through the rubble in darkness illuminated only by the group's increasingly distant halogen lights, you step through the hole into an interior courtyard, open to the night sky, with all the cheer of a prison yard. There's your target, right in the middle of the courtyard. Even as you approach, you can see signs of recent excavation. Whatever was down there, it's gone. You stare into the open hole. Of course this was going to happen. It's not like you got out of Gearwa's energetics without having to run a favor for your sire that almost got you vaporized, or dropped off your message at Street Basil's without getting dragged into Julian's scheme to take over the whole hospital. There are drag marks all over the courtyard. Whoever moved the cash did it so recently they might still be here. And when you were outside, you didn't see fresh tire tracks leading out. You need to figure out where in Biosphere Zero someone dragged the cash. But investigation will have to wait. It's an hour to dawn, and you still need a place to stay. You head deeper into the building. The missing signs make the place hard to navigate. But they left one, and the Westminster-like font says gym ahead. You follow it to a windowless shower attached to an empty gym. A long storage bench is just the right size for vampires. You set Inoya to guard your temporary haven, and fall asleep. Holy shit. Holy shit. The shouting wakes you early. You check your knockoff panerai. It's still 5 minutes to sunset. You start to drift back to sleep, even as you hear banging in the gym. Then Inoya snarls. You hear a gunshot, and you're instantly awake. You're still mostly dead while the sun is up, but you throw the lid off the bench you're sleeping inside and stumble to your feet. Someone shoots you, and you fall down. Fuck. Fuck. Stop shooting. A woman yells. Who the fuck is that? A man's voice. A flashlight sweeps over you. Shit. The woman's voice again. She's dead. You open your eyes, and the woman screams. With the sun still up, you're so exhausted you can barely move, but you reach into your front pocket and retrieve your wallet. The bullet went right through it, and right through a lung. But it didn't hit bone or muscle. You're basically fine. You take out the wallet, cover the exit wound, and say, "Don't worry. It hit the card multi-tool in my wallet. I'm fine." You're a good liar, and you know how to tell a lie people want to believe. "Thank God," she says, helping you up. You remember seeing her before. She's the one with the helmet. You're too tired to remember her name. Her headlamp keeps shining in your face. And, Paul, put that fucking gun away. I heard someone just after I found Tex, Paul, the older guy with the not-so-concealed weapon, says, holstering his H&K VP9. "And there was a fucking wolf in here." I am not kidding. "It's not a wolf," you say. "That's my dog." You mentally summon your Lobo, who is unhurt. Inoya is willing to obey your signal and not growl, though she wants more than anything to rip Paul's throat out. The pink-haired young woman runs into the gym. She raises a crowbar until the older woman waves her away. "She didn't do it," she says. "You're still so tired you can't stand up." "Do what?" you ask in a daze. "You better answer our questions," Paul says. "Who are you?" "I'm just a courier. I came here to pick something up." "I have a better question. Who are you, and why did you just shoot me?" "I'm the person who was asleep until a minute ago." "What the hell is going on?" "This asshole shot me." "I'm going to wait until the sun goes down and then rip one of his fingers off." "Haven't decided which one yet." You try to talk, but you're so exhausted that all you can do is mumble. "Is she high?" "That's someone else." You force yourself to look up. It's the other older guy, the lawyer. Your head is so foggy. "Just tired," you mumble. Everyone else files in. Everyone except yeah, Tex. The researcher with the blonde beard, the one who opened the exterior door. "You have a name, Celeste," you mutter, too tired to use one of your false identities. "Listen, Celeste, did you see or hear anything?" the older woman asks. "Stephanie?" "No, the tall one is Stephanie." "Why?" you ask. "We're here to research illegal experiments conducted by the federal government in the 1970s, Antonio says. "And now one of our people is dead. I'm sorry about Tex. And I really am. These people are in over their heads." "What happened? Is it the sea?" I force myself to get up, ready to run or at least limp in case they show up. I check my gun. I don't trust Paul, and I definitely don't trust whoever killed Tex. "Easy there," Ophelia says as you try to get up. Then the sun sets, and you rise fully. The researchers take a frightened step back as unnatural vigor flows into your body. Inoya howls, low and soft. Only the lawyer, Antonio, seems willing to approach you now. "We're looking for government records about people of the government experimented on in the 70s, he says. "We were making headway. But, look, if we find what we're looking for, We're going to make a lot of powerful people angry. Government people, Janet says, running a worried hand through her hot pink hair. We just found Tex. He's an ecologist. He's dead. Throat all torn open. And you think the government like a government agent ripped his throat open? I'm already thinking Masquerade violation. Not good. Take me to him. I need to help these people before they all get killed. I'm actually here to pick up a package, not to do whatever you're doing. I need to get paid and get out. Are we trusting this weirdo? Paul says. She was sleeping in a drawer. And then you shot her, Ophelia says. Paul backs down. The others seem glad to have you here. You grab your stuff and follow Ophelia down a winding unlit corridor full of abandoned furniture to an office complex. Tex is face down on a metal office desk, his throat shredded. There's blood all over the felt partition of this cubicle farm. A brief investigation reveals that Tex has been drained of blood. The others gather around like silent mourners. Stephanie sets up a floor lamp and aims it at the corpse as you look for footprints. You and Antonio follow an overturned metal chair to an adjoining room full of old TV broadcast equipment, but that's where the trail ends. Even Inoya can't pick up anything more. Do you know what killed him? You ask when you come back. I know what was keeping him alive, Janet says. His neck. Without that, he'd just... Show some fucking respect, Paul snaps at the pink-haired woman. You are all in terrible danger. Get in your van and leave. I can't have more corpses on my conscience. I can't have them discovering the exsanguination in case someone starts thinking about vampires. We should bury him. As quickly as possible. Why, Tex? I mean, was he killed specifically, or did the killer just see an opportunity and take it? I'm trying to see the bigger picture. That's a good question. Antonio says, leaning back against the partition and trying to think. It doesn't add up, Janet says. The journalist sets her laptop up on the corner of the desk. Maybe ... Hey, I know, maybe Tex, like, surprised a government agent who was just sent to spy on us. There was a fight, and maybe the agent grabbed, like, some office scissors. Settle down, Laura Bow, Paul tells the pink-haired journalist. You're just guessing and getting yourself worked up. Paul is right, Ophelia says. No one here is a doctor, so we can't conduct an autopsy. You expect them to head for the van and leave, but after a few minutes Ophelia finds a walk-in freezer next to an abandoned kitchen. When they start hooking up a generator to turn it into a makeshift cold room, you realize they're staying. You hide your incredulity, but Ophelia answers your unspoken question. We're not leaving until we have what we came here to learn, the scientist says. You probably think we're crazy. You're thinking that while a human rights lawyer and some journalists might want to stay, a scientist should get out. But you stay silent as you help with the body. It's true, I first got interested in Biosphere Zero from an ecological perspective, Ophelia says. But now it's more than that. Our world is dying, Celeste. And there are powerful people trying to kill it. Some of them worked here. Some of them are still alive. They're senators and lobbyists. They taught me biology in college. I'm going to learn their names, Ophelia says. and then Stephanie and Janet are going to tell everyone. She glances back at the two journalists. We're not leaving. So that's that. The group makes sure the walk-in freezer is running properly. That will serve as an improvised morgue for Tex, until they can get him home. Everyone makes sure the freezer is cold enough, which gives you time to investigate the missing cache again, but though you see signs of disturbed earth and drag marks, they end suddenly on the concrete floor. You find a folder labeled Emissions Data 1945 to 1970 where the drag marks end, but it's empty. Inoue can't pick up a trail, and you can't find any footprints. The explorers return to their camp in the atrium. They stay close together and listen to Paul, though you're not sure he's qualified to keep anyone safe. He was a civilian contractor in Afghanistan, which means that while he might technically know how to secure a perimeter, his behavior might put people at risk. Their plan is to explore the whole facility and, eventually, find their own cache, a record of everyone who worked at Biosphere Zero and what they did here. It won't be easy. One section of the atrium is completely collapsed, and another wing's ceiling has caved in, leaving it strewn with rubble and dangerous to cross. And the place is huge. But they're determined. I make sure the explorers focus on security and don't go wandering off. I don't want any more casualties. I slip away anyway and check the cache location again. I'm just here to find Jasper Knowles' data and get it back to Prince Leto. That's it. Is there anything worth grabbing around here? Anything valuable? This place might have been horrible, but it's also amazing. I look around for anything I can learn. The areas you've explored so far are stark and barren. The atrium used to have a huge map on one wall, but it's long gone. You double back to the office complex where Tex died, but that doesn't seem to be a research area. If you're going to learn more about Biosphere Zero, you'll have to delve deeper. You also head up to the second story of the atrium where a window looks down on your Audi. It's fine. When you get back, the explorers have spread out an old map and are arguing about where to investigate first. They fall silent when you and Inoue reappear. They're a little afraid of you. That's an ugly part about being a vampire, but you might be able to use that to direct their actions. The map is a bade photocopy actually, a copy of a mimeograph, but it outlines some interesting sounding areas, all identified with the same not quite Westminster font as you've seen on the walls: Computer Hall, Forest Biosphere Zone, Agriculture Dome, Research Records, Personnel, Armory. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Common Auspex, Inoue can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, this agriculture dome is the largest single structure in Biosphere Zero. Could it tell us anything? My vampiric strength will help me hang on as I climb. Competence, this says research records. Should we start by looking for their library data? I bet personnel has information about who worked here. I ask if we should start there. Maybe we should conduct an investigation of the passageways before we delve into specific areas? I wonder if there's anything valuable in the armory. Should we try the first? What rituals could I employ to help me here? I'm getting hungry. Which of the explorers could I target as prey? We talked about that earlier, Janet says, looking at Stephanie. It's right next to one of the main science centers, so it probably contains research on, what they did to people here. The problem is it's going to contain huge reams of academic and scientific data that will require analysis. I can probably handle some of it, Ophelia says, but I'll need help. Since Tex is dead. You'd need real brains and academic training to sift through the data for anything useful. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Common Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, this agriculture dome is the largest single structure in Biosphere 0. He Research Records Hall is past the office complex and attached to the main scientific wing, which has been stripped of equipment, leaving only bare benches, a few chalkboards, and some frame prints by John William Waterhouse and Frederick Layton stacked up against one wall. The researchers took almost everything, but Janet finds a toppled metal shelving unit full of research notes. You set up some lights and start skimming the data. Most of the books are just lists of numbers, vital statistics, and location/date notes. It takes you half the night to understand what the data represents. They're people, you tell Antonio. The people they imprisoned here. And these notes. Remand completed resources to the agricultural facility for recycling. They buried them in the agricultural dome, Antonio says. As fertilizer. He grabs his recording equipment and runs for the facility's largest dome. You're exhausted from hours of research, but not so exhausted that you're going to let these explorers run off. Not after what happened to Tex. You bang your palm on the metal table and Antonio freezes. Everyone assemble all your equipment, together, and then we'll go to the agricultural dome. The dead aren't in any rush, after all. If this is anything like Bosnia, Stephanie says, illuminated by the starlight spilling in through the broken glass of the huge dome, from the volume of disturbed earth, I'd guess at least 50 people were buried here. But I really don't want to estimate until we know more. Antonio starts taking notes, but you're more interested in the entirely mundane-looking garden shed nearby. It's been opened recently. Someone forced the lock, and the chipped metal is still shiny. You surreptitiously open it and find 3 spades, 3 rakes, 3 hoes, 2 shovels. Whoever dug up your cache didn't do it with their bare hands, it seems. And they didn't come with tools. The explorers spend all night around the mass grave, taking photographs and notes, and they're going to spend all day there, too. It's almost dawn. You're not sure that whatever killed Tex is a vampire, but you take no chances. You convince everyone to spend the day in the open courtyard, under the sun. As daylight approaches, you notice more drag marks that you didn't see before. And a hinged plastic lid. It might have belonged to Jasper Knowles's cache. You rest in a storage room you find attached to a woman's bathroom, guarded by an oil. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Common Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, this agriculture dome is the largest single structure in Biosphere 0. Could it tell us anything? My vampiric strength will help me hang on as I climb. Competence, I bet personnel has information about who worked here. I ask if we should try the next. Maybe we should conduct an investigation of the passageways instead of exploring any more specific areas. I wonder if there's anything valuable in the armory. Should we try the next? What rituals could I employ to help me here? I'm getting hungry. Which of the explorers could I target as prey? Our drone flew into the agriculture dome and took a few recordings, Ophelia says, handing you some printouts of what looks like a long-abandoned farm. This is where the subjects. The slaves, Stephanie interjects while checking her notebook. It's where they tried to grow enough food to survive, Ophelia says. Not sure I want to wander around a jungle after everything that's happened, Stephanie says, looking up from her notebook. Here's something interesting, Ophelia says, pointing at one of the printouts with a multi-tool. A monitoring and recording station at the very top of the dome. But we can't access it from ground level. We'd have to climb the entire dome. That would take considerable balance and athletic skill, but the printouts show cameras up there. Could there be a video archive at the top of the dome? A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Common Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, we climb to the center of the agricultural dome to reach the recording station there. I'm nimble enough to take the lead. Dex plus athletics, my vampiric strength will help me hang on as I climb. Competence, I bet personnel has information about who worked here. I ask if we should try the next. Maybe we should conduct an investigation of the passageways instead of exploring any more specific areas. I wonder if there's anything valuable in the armory. Should we try the next? What rituals could I employ to help me here? I'm getting hungry. Which of the explorers could I target as prey? Definitely, Janet says. Unfortunately, I've dug through human resources records from this era before. The organization is terrible. We'll end up spending all day just sorting out what's useful. That kind of academic work sounds mind-numbing. But you bet you could find a lot of information in those HR offices. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate. The personnel department is right off the atrium, in a sprawling maze of rooms and corridors. The sense of disorder and bureaucratic tedium is palpable, even with most of the information and furniture long since removed. There are still some records in a locked storage room that Paul is able to force open with a crowbar. You hand out huge binders full of federal payroll and employment data, and get to work looking for something useful. Aronovich, Aaron A. GS 61973 1026. It's going to be a long night. The data you're confronted with isn't as technical as the scientific documents you studied the other night, but it's even more complicated. Nonetheless, you're able to organize the information until an interesting pattern emerges. There are tags attached to all the payroll numbers, you say. FNMA. BFC. What are they? FNMA? Antonio says. That's Fannie Mae. The Loan Commission. Privatized in 1968. BFC. Pavlova fried chicken, Janet says. Damn commies. You have to conduct a few quick searches on a laptop before you find the likeliest answer. Phoenix Financial Center, Stephanie Reds. Completed in the 60s. You match a half dozen other tags to federal or state operations shut down just before Biosphere Zero opened. What's happening is obvious. These tags, Antonio says, track which government agencies are still being funded even though they're shut down. And then they shunted the money to this facility. I've seen this trick used before. Where? Stephanie asks. At Campsville. I've tracked the career of a nice agent named Ellen Olive Kroner since she first showed up in the Obama administration, Antonio explains. In 2009, she was part of a commission that moved huge amounts of federal data offline for reasons I still don't understand. The Gamorilla data blackout. The reason you have a job. And she used routing codes like this on her payroll documents, the lawyer says. Don't you see? They're still using this trick. We can do some digging once we get home and expose all kinds of dark money transfers, going back to the 60s. I'll set up the OCR to copy all of this. Don't wonder. You snap as people start to move. You oversee a return to the camp, where the OCR equipment is located, and then back to the personnel office. No one moves out of sight, not even for a second. Antonio is ecstatic. But you haven't found anything you can use to find the cache ... until you find a folder that fell behind a desk. It contains a partial list of cell blocks throughout Biosphere Zero and their locations. There are too many cells to explore all at once, but if you pass one ... might whoever stole the cache have stored it in one of those secure holding cells until the explorers leave? If you see one, you'll check it out. But now it's close to dawn. The explorers are happily scanning documents and will be at it for most of the day. You rest that day deep in the old medical wing, which reminds you of your time at Street Basil's. When you rise that evening, you learn that last night's explorations have allowed Antonio to get in contact with an acolyte of Buckminster Fuller. The legendary architect refused to be involved with Biosphere Zero, but he talked about it on a few occasions. The explorers now have access to earlier drafts of Biosphere Zero's layout, which should make navigation easier. One of the rejected layouts looks familiar, you think. Where have you seen it before? A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Common Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, we climb to the center of the agricultural dome to reach the recording station there. After considering each in turn, you think your best chance is Janet, the pink-haired journalist. She's young and just scared enough to trust you, without being so scared she might suddenly attack. The main complication is that after Tex's death, everyone is on high alert. Any mistake might expose you as the killer. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Common Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, we climb to the center of the agricultural dome to reach the recording station there. I'm nimble enough to take the lead. Dex plus athletics, my vampiric strength will help me hang on as I climb. Competence, maybe we should conduct an investigation of the passageways instead of exploring any more specific areas. I wonder if there's anything valuable in the armor. You're going to lose control if you get any more hungry, and you want to feed before the situation here gets any worse. So, before you set out that night, you contemplate how to lure the pink-haired journalist away from the others in a way that will give you enough time to feed but not enough time for whatever else is out there to do the same thing. I lie, telling her that I've found something interesting. Man plus subterfuge, I know how to persuade a woman into bed. I'll feed while we have sex. Char/man plus persuasion, I bide my time, showing great patience, then sneak up on Janet the moment she's alone. Reese plus clandestine, come with me. A good, hard compulsion will lure her away long enough for me to feed without complications. Dominate, I'm not going to feed right now. The camp is well lit and secure from intrusion, and the explorers are always moving around. Paul watches the portable cameras he's set up, Ophelia reviews research data, Stephanie writes in her notebook, and Antonio keeps reviewing names and dates. Nervous after everything that's happened, Janet just wonders. You follow her without looking like you're following her, knowing you'll only have a moment to strike. You wait for over an hour. Finally she steps behind one of the atrium pillars, out of sight, and you move. But she wanders out the other side too quickly. You think you see to other opportunities when she's away from the others, but each time she moves away, and she's starting to get suspicious. This won't work. You back off, stymied. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, we climb to the center of the agricultural dome to reach the recording station there. I'm nimble enough to take the lead. Dex plus athletics, my vampiric strength will help me hang on as I climb. Competence, maybe we should conduct an investigation of the passageways instead of exploring any more That's a good idea, Paul says. We've been too slipshod. A meticulous investigation of the corridors would take time and patience, but that might be the best way to track down Professor Knowles's cache. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, we climb. I'm sure they emptied it before they shut this place down, Paul says. True, Antonio says, but it's right next to the security offices. If we could break in there we might find some interesting data. But we'd have to break in, Paul says. He sighs. Tex was the one who was into locksport. And that place is probably still locked up tight. It sounds like a bit of finesse and your lockpicks might get you into the armory. A computer hall? Could we turn on the old computers? Could we learn anything in the forest biosphere? Do you think it's still growing? My enhanced senses of hearing and sight will help me navigate the forest zone. Common Auspex, Inoa can help guide us through the forest zone. Animalism, we climb to the center of the agricultural dome to reach the recording station there. I'm nimble enough to take the lead. Dex plus athletic. The explorer's maps are incomplete and often inaccurate. A systematic mapping will help the explorers see how Biosphere Zero fits together, and let you cover as much ground as possible looking for the cache. Your work proceeds systematically and methodically. You leapfrog the lights, always keeping everyone in sight, as Stephanie takes notes and Antonio makes sure no one wanders off. After several hours, you identify several places not on the maps: a morgue full of emaciated bodies left to rot, a cafeteria where fighting left to jumpsuited men dead of knife wounds, a wall covered in bullet holes and dried blood in execution site, Antonio thinks. The explorers record everything. You notice a shovel left behind a desk. There's fresh dirt on the blade. It's the shovel missing from the shed near the mass grave. You unleash Inoya, but she can't pick up a scent, and there aren't any tracks leading to or from the shovel. You convince the others to search this otherwise uninteresting office top to bottom, but the cache isn't there. We're all tired, Paul says. We should get back and get some rest. You head back to camp before exhaustion leads to mistakes. The survivors are in better spirits after this evening's minor victory. They really are selfless and determined to see this job through. You conduct a brief search for the hidden killer. You don't find anything, but your flashlight hits one of the few remaining signs. Spill Zone, it reads in the now familiar Westminster-ish typeface. Just like Kiowa's xenogenetics. That area is partially collapsed, the ground strewn with rubble and broken slabs of concrete. Still, it's interesting. You encourage the explorers to investigate that area in particular during the day, then rest in a storage room attached to a garage. The next evening, you rise to find Antonio holding up a plastic lid. That Spill Zone question, Antonio says. Stripped clean once you get past the broken rocks. I mean completely clean, nothing left, not a paperclip or scrap of carpeting. But then we found this. Weird, huh? Very, you say. You're getting close. You're sure the cache is still here? We need to leave, Janet tells Antonio that night. I mean, we have enough, right? They can't just bulldoze this place now. The others join, and after a moment so do you and Inoya. Antonio seems to be coming to some kind of a decision. He walks slowly through the atrium, toward the Spill Zone sign. You've never actually been there, since the explorers investigated it during the day. It would be easier then, with light shining in from the broken ceiling. You're right, Antonio finally says. We can't stay. But I think we're being watched. I think that the moment we leave, someone will come here and wipe this place clean. You're in too much danger to stay. I'm really worried about these people. They need to go now. What are you going to do with the research you've accumulated so far? I'm curious about Antonio's long-term plans. If possible, I'd like to stay in touch after you leave. Because I need to destroy anything they saw that violates the Masquerade. I say you come back with a bigger team before the government can respond. Fuck the feds, this place should be exposed. Of course, Celeste, Antonio says. You've allowed us to stay here for a few nights, and I owe you. What is it? You've stopped in front of a blank wall in the Spill Zone. It's true that everything has been stripped. But this cinder block wall with the faded orange paint stripe. You've seen it before. This was where Jasper Knowles kept the Nosferatu White. The one Julian unleashed on him, to Jasper's destruction. I think I heard something. Stay here. I don't want mortals following me if there's a vampire or some other masquerade breach right around the corner. Does anyone recognize these stripes? Do we know what they mean? I'm still trying to figure this place out. I recognize this place. And I don't particularly care if Antonio knows why. You wave the others back and you start climbing over the broken rocks, sweeping a flashlight back and forth so you don't twist an ankle. When you drop down, you confront a vertical split in one wall, wide enough to squeeze through. There's a spot of dirt on the ground in front of it. There's less than a gram, but you recognize it. Oh damn, look, Ophelia says, pointing it out to the others as they clamber over the broken concrete. Dirt from the courtyard. What? Stephanie asks. We were talking about it the other day, Ophelia says. Me and Janet. There's a big hole in the courtyard, like someone dug up. She looks at you. Oh my god, that's why you're here, isn't it? Stephanie kneels down and shines her flashlight through the vertical crack in the wall. On the far side is another room, more intact than the others, and a metal door. I might as well answer Ophelia's question so we can all understand each other. I'm here for a trunk full of old equipment. That's all I want. No reason to waste time when I know there's a door here. I slip through the crack and inspect the metal door. Someone check out that metal door. I'll let someone else go ahead in case there's trouble up ahead. The crack is wide enough to fit the cache, so you have no problem getting through. This room seems more stable than the others. The metal door is ordinary and shows signs of recent use. You test it. It's unlocked. It opens to reveal a staircase leading up. You and Inoya take the lead up the wide concrete staircase, your flashlight beam sweeping through the darkness. A second metal door swings on its hinges, half open. The smell that assaults you as you push it all the way open is rank, blood, vomit, formaldehyde, worse fluids and chemicals. It's labeled Cell Block 3 in big stenciled letters, and it's either a laboratory or a prison. The far wall is lined with holding cells just barely large enough for a person. The wall to your right is full of old scientific equipment covered in tarps. You spot a modern Chromebook covered in dust on a metal table. Ahead and to the left is some kind of nest made of dirty pillows, fur, and secretions. The smell is nauseating. There's an acidic reek to the air. The nest has chewed into the concrete, causing it to rot and crack. And, right in the middle of the room, a battered metal and plastic case marked with a stenciled black hand, missing one of its two lids. That's it. That's Jasper Knowles's cache. Good. But I still need to destroy whatever is hunting me. That's something, but I still need to protect the explorers from whatever is hunting them. Time to do my job and get this thing to Prince Leto. I can't wait to turn this data over to Julian and see what he can do with it. I hope there are more answers in that case. People need to know what horrors transpired here. There's some banging around below. I'm fine, Antonio calls up. Just slipped on some ... I don't even know what this is. It's slimy. Stephanie is the first one through. She regards the room with total disinterest, then turns and fixes you and Inoya with a defiant gaze. And you know she's the one who killed Tex and has been hunting you for 3 nights. She crosses to the cells. The orange stripes on the wall and the chain that held Jasper Knowles' white are exactly the same as what you saw in that video, back at Tuxcan's rooftop Elysium. You and I are going to have a talk, Celeste, the one who calls herself Stephanie says. You and me and the others. Ophelia's headlamp illuminates the ceiling. The explorers will be here ... to hear what their hunter has to say ... in about 3 seconds. I quickly slam and lock the door before the survivors hear this, to protect the Masquerade. Commodex plus clandestine/technology, I wait until I can meet their gaze, then say, go. They can't hear whatever is coming, for their own sake. Dominate, I draw my pistol and threaten them until they go back down the steps. Char/man plus intimidation, after all we've been through, I persuade them to leave for their own good. Char/man plus persuasion, I need to lie. I shout that the room is full of gas and order everyone back down the steps, before it's too late. Man plus subterfuge. I'll worry about the Masquerade breach later, and I'm not turning my back on Stephanie. I don't stop them. There's some banging around below. What have you found? Antonio says. He starts to ask another question as he enters, followed by Ophelia and Janet, but the question dies on his lips. I'm looking forward to this, the one who called herself Stephanie says. I've heard about you, Celeste, the one called Stephanie says. Child of Nvidia call, courier to the Camarilla, and whoever else will pay. Do you know me? They gave me a name, though I rarely use it myself. Lampago. You glance from Lampago's rippling flesh to the explorers, frozen in terror. Whatever you say next, the Masquerade is already in tatters. There seems little point in speaking obliquely now. You're going to pay for killing Tex. I consider how best to strike at this monster. I thought hunters destroyed you. At least that's the tale of Lampago I was told. Did the Camarilla lie? They described you as little more than an animal. You're awfully talkative. Now I'm curious, were people wrong, or has something changed? You obviously want something. So do I. What kind of deal can we make? Let's see if I can trade with this thing. I gesture to the explorers. Let them go, Lampago. I've seen enough of this monster. I attack. Jasper Knowles remade me with the secrets he learned here, Lampago says. She glances toward the cache. He was more than a sorcerer. He studied the Canite mind. He unlocked the paths it could take to escape the mindless rage and hunger of the beast. He forced me down one of those paths. It was a bloody and awful road. I will never stop hating him. But now I am more than I was. Celeste, Stephanie, Antonio says in a shaky voice, "What the hell is happening?" "Be silent, mortal," Lampago says. The survivors huddle behind the old scientific equipment. You glance around the room for other exits. There's another metal door to your left, next to the last cell. Professor Knowles was a great man, Lampago says. He was a scholar of the spirit. He wanted to understand what humans and Canites could endure, what would break them beyond repair, what would change them forever. He found his answer here, but it took him decades to unravel what he had discovered. He almost succeeded when Julian Sim destroyed him. Julian took all his latest research. But he did not find my maker's original research. She kicks the box holding the cache. So Jasper Knowles was responsible for the atrocities that happened here. If Lampago wants to continue that work, I need to stop her. If you're just looking to be left alone here, maybe we can make a deal. I still want to strike some sort of bargain to get the cache. His work was dangerous but interesting. Are you continuing it? I'm interested in the science of the mind and the beast. You know that Knowles turned a child of Eremos into a raving wight, don't you? The traditions exist to stop people like Jasper Knowles. I've heard enough from this monster. I attack. There are other ways of being, Celeste, than fighting one's beast every night, clinging to a humanity that died on the lips of your sire, Lampago says. The Sabbat knew of these secrets. Professor Knowles sought to rediscover them. I am not unreasonable. I know you want this cache. I want, first, to tell you what I have learned, and then to offer you a deal. Yes. A deal. A deal. Antonio shouts. You murdered my friend. Paul has drawn his pistol, you notice. He's not doing a good job of hiding it. You came into my home. Lampago says, her incisors stretching out into fangs. "You disrupted my work." She seems ready to let her beast slip free, but then the monstrous woman masters herself. "You don't know what I am, Antonio. I, too, am a victim of this place. A victim of its experiments. I can tell you things about what happened here, things you cannot imagine. But there is something about a vampire nearly fallen to the beast that instinctively repulses mortals." Antonio and the others look physically sickened by Lampago's words. "And the monster before you knows it. Her fangs and claws grow long, impossibly long. You may be able to reason with her and prevent an explosion of lethal violence, but you will have to be very careful. She really is a monster, and any mistake here will lead to an immediate attack. Already her flesh is starting to shift and ripple, perhaps heralding some dreadful metamorphosis. Of course, you could always attack her first." I stay cool and lie, agreeing with whatever Lampago says in order to start negotiations. /man plus subterfuge, I make sure she can see my pistol and say, "What can you offer me?" I can only negotiate with a monster like this from a position of strength. /reese plus intimidation, I'm a skilled negotiator, and I speak clearly and well as I work to secure the best possible deal. /man plus persuasion, there can be no negotiation with this monster. I strike her down while she still thinks I want to talk. I can't risk her attacking me when my guard is down. I strike at her first. You and Lampago negotiate for several tense minutes, even though all you're doing is nodding and agreeing with whatever she says, as the surviving explorers watch. The monster snarls and writhes, her teeth sometimes growing long as knives as shadows squirm in the darkness of the laboratory, trying to discomfort you. She does, but you just keep agreeing with whatever she says. Finally Lampago says, "I wish to continue my studies, to become more of what I am. For that I need a servant of my own. But a clever one. Not like the whelps that once clung to my flesh. Someone like..." Her gleaming eyes fall on Antonio, who shudders. "He will be of my flesh," Lampago says. "A child of my own, not a mere thrall." "Oh God, no," Antonio says. "Also, secrets," Lampago says. "Whatever secrets you can offer. You consider what you know." "What do you know?" "A great deal about both the Camarilla and Julian Sims operation. And, of course, you know the power of your blood. Might Lampago value that?" And in exchange, the monster says with a jagged smile, "Professor Knowles's secrets are yours." She kicks the box. Quietly so I can't be overheard, "Take Antonio for yourself. In addition, I'll share what I know of the Camarilla and Julian Sim. But not too much about either." I whisper, "Antonio is yours, and I will tell you what I know about Julian Sim. But I won't reveal anything about the Camarilla." I whisper, "Antonio is yours, and I will tell you what I know about the Camarilla. But I'm not telling her about Julian's work." Quietly, "Take Antonio, of course. Also I will share with you secrets of my blood. A counteroffer ... all the information I have on both Julian Sim's operation and the local Camarilla. Everything, in detail. How about this instead? A taste of my blood and the secrets within, then information on the Camarilla and Julian Sim. Not all the information ... but enough. Enough. I attack this monster before she devours Antonio. I'm going to trick Lampago into thinking I'll sacrifice Antonio. Okay, he's yours, I say, making eye contact with the survivors and making it clear they need to run. /man plus subterfuge. You and Lampago negotiate for... What are you two saying? What are you two saying? Antonio asks. What are... Oh God. Oh God, no. May 2004. A scholar Rhino believes that innocence has a kind of substance, Yosaya says, returning from her bedroom. She does not feed in your presence and will not permit you to feed in hers, but you can see her research assistant lolling in dazed ecstasy upon her red silk bed. Wrapped in her poison green dressing gown, Dr. Cole closes the door, then crosses to the window and looks across the street to the opera house. I've existed for long enough to know that evil is real, Celeste. I have tried to place the art of thaumaturgy on a scientific basis, but I know that the thing inside us is more like the devil than anything else. You've felt the beast inside of you. It will never go away. And if you're not careful, it will spread. We are monsters, and we exist in a world of monsters. To kill each other, to ruin each other. That is our nature. The strong among the kind have half a foot in our world, so to put it crudely, if you need to kill a cop to survive, well, do it. But to kill while feeding? Or because it is convenient in the moment? Do that, and your beast grows and your humanity withers. Do it enough and you become a nameless monster. I don't know why it happens that way. But that's how it happens. Make peace with your nature, Celeste. But do not indulge it. She notices some blood on her chin in the reflection, and for a moment you see the wild rage that lurks inside Dr. Invidia Cool. Then she quickly masters herself and dabs the blood away with a handkerchief. Paul raises his pistol, but Lampago knocks it out of his hands and slaps him to the ground. Then she hurls herself on top of Antonio as Ophelia and Janet scream. When Ophelia draws a knife, you pluck it from her hands. After that they're both just paralyzed with horror. She drinks deep from his shredded carotid artery, until his eyes sink into his skull. The lawyer dies with his gaze fixed on yours. Then the monster rips open her shirt, baring her breasts, and draws a bloody gash from her clavicle to her navel. She cradles the corpse and lets blood flow over his white lips. Antonio spasms. His eyes close, then open again. He starts to drink. He's so hungry, Lampago observes as Antonio throws himself again and again against the bars of his cell, trying to reach his former friends. Ophelia and Janet huddle in the corner, almost mad with terror. And now for the other half of the deal. You quietly take the safety off your pistol before offering Lampago your palm. She smiles as her teeth grow longer and longer, but she forces herself to remain in control. She takes no more than she needs. You've never taught the arts of the blood before. You describe what you've learned over the years and how you've used your dark gifts. You did not expect the monstrous creature to respond so well to words, but she nods, and her flesh ripples as she seems to translate your lessons. Slime drips from Lampago's nest, hissing softly against the concrete. You have fulfilled your end of the bargain, Lampago says. And I will fulfill mine. But I feel a great change coming, Celeste. Go. Go quickly. Inoue bolts down the stairs. You grab the bulky cash and head downstairs as Lampago's flesh twists and writhes. You don't want to know what kind of metamorphosis will overtake her in the nights to come. And you don't need to. You got what you came for. You drop the cash at the base of the stairs. The door that leads to the stairs shudders and cracks. and a wave of choking dust flows down the stairway. When you can see again, the stairs to cell block 3 are blocked off. Janet, Ophelia, and Paul are sitting on their equipment, their faces streaked with dust and filth, their expressions haunted. Paul's weapon is missing. They'll never forget what they saw. This is an enormous breach of the Masquerade, and even though it's not really your fault, it might come back around to you. I contact Julian. Janet can go to work for him. It's a big favor to ask and it might raise a little suspicion, but what she learned won't get out. An unprepared and exhausted mortal can't fight a vampire. I kill her and drink her blood. I can't bring myself to kill her. I let her go. Appealing to her own career interests, I persuade her to remain silent, or at least to omit the more overtly supernatural-seeming events. Common man plus intimidation/persuasion. You spend a few minutes reassuring Janet and making sure you have her contact information. You ask her not to mention your name or your cache of data under any circumstances, and she agrees. Of course, you're not going to give her a chance to talk. The moment you're back in Tucson, you're going to send Julian a message about where and how to pick up the journalist. She'll disappear into Julian's increasingly labyrinthine organization, and none of what she knows will come out. You strap the cache to the top of your Audi and get some distance between yourself and Biosphere Zero. Then you spend the day in one of the old barns you passed coming here while Inoya stands guard. The moment the sun sets, you get underway again. As you approach Arizona, the news on the radio mentions a fire in one of the towns ahead. You brake, pull over, think. You can't be sure, but something about it smells like the Second Inquisition. You get to the edge of town, enter an all-night diner, and place a call at the payphone. Prince Leto's ghoul, Alexander, picks up. "It's me," you say. "Always a pleasure to hear from you. Do you have what we asked for?" "Of course. I'm a professional." "None of your business, lackey. What's going on up ahead?" "The radio said something about a fire." I never had any doubts. Unfortunately, certain people in our organization were less competent and discreet than you. And there are complications on the road ahead. He reads a coded address. "That is a safe house. Go there, then continue your journey." You hang up. The safe house is an unfinished and neglected McMansion. Only one of the rooms is finished, but all 4 walls are up and the windows are boarded over. It will do. The next evening, you finally check out the cache. You make a list of all the tapes, reels, notebooks, and cassettes inside, and take photographs of each page of the notebooks. Most of it is in code, but a typed-out subject list is not. Subjects include thaumaturgy, the moral philosophies of the now-vanished Sabbat, the Vitae experiments of someone named Jacob Prester, the early history of the Masquerade and arguments against its adoption, and a dissertation on the shadow architecture that you recognize from the Viper's rooftop Elysium. Carlos is waiting for you outside of town. You spend most of the next night in his Toyota 86 as he takes back roads and nervously weaves through traffic, watching for cops and listening to the radio and the police scanner. He barely talks. You're back in Tucson 2 hours before dawn. The first thing you do is stop in a cafe just as it opens and write detailed notes to Julian about Janet, including most importantly how to pick the journalist up before she starts to talk. You leave your report at his Dropbox. You're staring down at Tucson from your penthouse apartment with the data cache next the elevator a few minutes later. So where is all this information going? I take everything to Prince Leto at the Viper. I make sure Julian copies everything he needs. Only when that's done do I take what's left to Prince Leto. I use the information to insulate me from the sea and shore up the Masquerade and my position. Only when I feel secure do I go to the Viper. The music inside is thunderous. The pounding beats of Iman threaten to break the neighbor's windows every time the door opens. Prince Leto is waiting for you, Alexander shouts. His eyes dart past you to ... Who? When you turn, you don't see anyone. Leto and Dove are arguing alone on the rooftop Elysium. You catch the words, "shut down," and "bureaucratic bullshit." Rika cries out from atop a cactus when she sees you, and the kindred falls silent. You've wheeled the whole thing in on a dolly. Prince Leto's expression reveals nothing. Open it. You open the one working lid and take something out at random, a round film canister. It gleams white in the dim lights of the Viper. White like August 1947. It won't last, you say as the moon rises over New York City. It can't. We can't keep running around like neonates. Nothing has changed. Leto says. He's started wearing white again. The war is over, you say. Europe is in ruins. My homeland will never heal. And America ... I hate this place. I hate its crudeness, its proud and boastful ignorance. I want ... I want to rest. Don't say that. Leto cries. We don't have to stay here. What if we go west? There's no more west, you tell him. It's just California now. It's just more of this. And I can't see another night of this. I've done some research on that Stonehenge thing, boss, Dove says. Boss? I talked with one of my contacts at the University of Arizona. Boss? Leto steps away from you, then signals a retainer waiting near the stairs. The servant returns after a few minutes with your payment in a manila envelope. You get out of there as quickly as you can. One thought keeps going through your mind, he knows. Leto knows what happened to Ayla. He has to. You return to your penthouse and park the Audi. The day you dream of running across the desert at night. It should feel endless, but at night the desert comes alive, and you hunt alongside Leto of Break Law. How long has it been since you fended for yourself, rather than receiving blood in payment? You try to remember as you and Leto, who has taken the form of a desert wolf, coordinate to bring down a gazelle. In the moment before your fangs strike, you contemplate who you are. April 1917. This war is like all wars and like all peace, the strong prey on the weak. They call it nature or inevitability or the will of God, or they do not bother to justify it at all. But every night they feed. You know your own strength, and you know you must use it for something other than satisfying your basest needs. The strong must protect the weak. I dedicate myself to this principle and to guarding the most vulnerable from the depredations of monsters. I am sympathetic to the plight of the weak, I really am, but I will not swear myself to their service. I defy this false belief. The strong must rule the weak, for their own good and because that is the nature of the world, not coddle them. Vampire, the Masquerade. You shake off these strange notions of mercy and drag yourself up out of sleep. Ayla's memories cling to you as the sun sets and your night begins. You check your earnings from your partial stake in Street Basil's hospital, then spend $863 on upkeep, maintenance, fines, and fees to perpetuate your twilight existence. The conversation is slow, careful, and deliberate on both your parts. Elena knows you're not like her daytime customers, but she's dealt with enough frauds and swindlers in her life that she's not going to trust you, whatever you do or say, without proof that you can help her. Finally she says, "Step outside with me, Celeste." You head into the parking lot where you bought your Nissan Frontier. Elena pulls up the collar of her red leather jacket and fiddles with a pen, the nervous habit of a former smoker, you guess. "I'm having problems with my supply chain," she says. You glance back inside. Government is well stocked. "Someone not paying?" You guess. "Not that," she says. "Someone trying to sell. Too much, too fast. My contacts are dumping all sorts of hot shit on me, stuff I don't want, stuff I can't get rid of fast enough. It's drawing attention." A siren starts up somewhere in Tucson, which nicely punctuates Elena's point. "I need someone to have a conversation with my suppliers," she says. "Oh, like an actual conversation?" you say. "What, did you think I wanted you to fucking kill them?" Elena says. "Jesus Christ, Celeste, I know you think you're a wizard or something, but I don't need anyone killed by witchcraft. I need to bring someone new around, someone who will scare them because they don't know you. Then I can reason with them. And then I can speak to the boss." Her plan makes sense. Elena's contacts run through a powerful Ukrainian mobster, so you just need to talk to him and tell him to stop using Covenant Pawn Shop as a dumping ground. And to talk to him, you need to talk to some of his underlings. "Talk," Elena insists. "You might be able to use your mental powers, but this is a mission that doesn't call for mayhem. And if you succeed... well, from the way Elena is looking at you right now, she wants a taste of whatever power you have. If you can pull this off, she's yours. I can't do it tonight, but we'll talk to the mobsters soon." "I don't think I can do that, Elena. Sorry." "All right, let's convince these mobsters to stop dumping their crap." Elena smiles and outlines how you can approach Victor, the mob boss who handles black market distribution in Tucson. You've heard the name Victor the Ukrainian in connection to Tucson's Toreador. You're not sure, but he might be loosely connected to the Camarilla here, so this mission definitely can't end in bloodshed. But before you can end this confrontation in not bloodshed, you need to meet Victor. Elena outlines 3 approaches to the boss of bosses, the lowlifes who handle the actual deliveries, the mid-level businessmen, Elena's peers, though they're deeper in Arizona's criminal underworld than she is, or the underbosses, the men directly below Victor. Dealing with the petty criminals requires street smarts and low cunning. Negotiating with the middlemen calls for straight-up persuasion and their hard sell, and you'd have to meet the underbosses at the Cottage, a high-end supper club, and impress them with your manners. The higher you go, the harder it'll be, but the better placed you'll be to speak with Victor if you are able to finagle an introduction. "And bring cash," Elena says. "They might want inducements. However you approach this, you'll need enough blood in your veins to make Elena your ghoul. You can't just burn vitae. Let's talk to the petty criminals and lowlifes. They'll be the easiest to convince. Wit plus streetwise, I find one of the petty criminals and compel him to obey. Tell me where I can find Victor. Dominate, I head to the legitimate office building, where the mid-level managers." The first thing you do is change into your better clothes, just to look a little more professional. Then you hop in Elena's pumpkin orange Datsun 240Z and drive to a bland-looking glass-fronted building on Congress Street. It all looks very legitimate. Except that the lights are still on in the middle of the night. The gate guard greets Elena by name when she parks. He's wearing a pistol under his windbreaker. "Follow me," Elena says, adjusting her own weapon in the waistband of her jeans. The two of you take the elevator to the 5th floor. When you pass an open office with a dozen laptops tended by a single bored-looking technician, Elena waves you back into the shadows, then spends a few minutes chatting him up. Her flirting is so callous and calculated that you can't believe it works, but it does. Charmed, he leaves to run an errand for her. You have 10 minutes, Elena tells you. 15 if there's a line at Arby's. You hop on the nearest open laptop and run through a couple of the technician's emails, searching for Victor. The technician is too low level to interact with the boss of bosses, but when you check his sent mail, you find that he's foolishly sent a password reset to a mid-ranking fence in the organization. Most of that guy's emails are in Ukrainian, but you spot Victor's full name in one email, plus an address you can't read. "That's it," Elena says, leaning over your shoulder. "That's his yacht." "Oh, and this is all about him. Very useful." She snaps a picture of the email with her phone, then the two of you get out of there before the technician returns. You head down the elevator and then back to Elena's Datsun. You're so pleased by how well that went that it takes you a few minutes to remember you're in Arizona. "His yacht?" you finally ask. You're not exactly sure what an old tanker ship is doing in the middle of the Arizona desert, 20 miles west of Tucson, but soon enough you see its black bulk rising against the purple sky. It looks like a Soviet hulk abandoned on the shores of the vanishing Aral Sea, but you see signs of recent activity, tire tracks in the sand, the shadows of armed men on the deck, and cameras hidden among the cacti and scraggly trees outside. Elena called ahead. A garage door opens in the hulk and she parks her Datsun between a top-of-the-line Tahoe and a powder blue Ferrari Daytona. You've reached the top of Tucson's criminal hierarchy. If Elena can't get help stopping the hot goods deliveries here, she can't get it anywhere. The garage is cleaner than a Rolls-Royce showroom. The cleanest blonde you've ever seen is waiting for you in an immaculate business formal ensemble the same color as the Ferrari. "Olga," Elena says. "Elena," Olga says. They just glare at each other for a few seconds, then Olga smiles like invisible hooks are forcing her cheeks to move and says, "Victor is in the gym. You know the way." "Don't touch my car," Elena shouts behind her. She leads you down a 2001-looking hallway to a floor-to-ceiling plexiglass wall. Victor is inside playing racquetball. He emerges hair silver, skin bronze, athletic outfit gleaming white despite the sweat on his face a few minutes later, and smiles with greater warmth than Olga but with equally white teeth. He and Elena exchange a few brief words in Ukrainian, and Victor's smile fades. "And who is this one?" he says in English, pointing your way. "Does she hold an equity stake?" "She does not want my shop filling up with your shit, Victor," Elena says, momentarily losing her composure. And with that, Victor dismisses Elena as if she were a child throwing a tantrum instead of a businesswoman threatened with disaster. It's up to you, and you consider how to approach this negotiation. You have not met Victor before, but you know how princes think, even mortal princes. At least you hope you do. I can persuade this man, but charm won't work. I'll have to be stubborn, even relentless, until he agrees to stop dumping his merchandise at Government. Commerce plus persuasion. I just weave a net of bullshit and lies about the Tucson police and other gangs until Victor starts to worry about blowback from his mistreatment of Elena. Man plus subterfuge, it's time to make some threats. It'd probably be a mistake to beat the shit out of Victor here, but a few subtle hints of retribution should force him to back down. Man plus intimidation, I use my leadership skills and charm to help Elena negotiate with Victor again. Char plus leadership, first, I focus my senses, the better to read Victor's moods. Auspex. You start talking, explaining what Elena has no doubt already told Victor about how the stolen goods he's dropping off are drawing too much attention. He nods, says he understands. So you explain it again with different words. And then you do it again as Victor, obviously annoyed now, wanders off to take a shower. So what I'm saying, you say, your voice raised so Victor can hear you over the shower, is that she's going to get into trouble. I understand that. How could I not understand that? You know you're not allowed in here, right? My point is that she's worried, because... Fine. Jesus Christ, fucking fine. Victor screams. If I promise to reduce my deliveries, will you promise to leave me the fuck alone? You hand him a towel. Yes, you say. So, Elena says when you're back on the road, the Datsun's engine rumbling, I want what you have. You don't know what I am, you point out. Don't care, Elena says. I tell Elena everything she needs to know. It may harm the Masquerade, but I need my ghoul to understand what she's getting into. I tell Elena only the minimum of what she needs to know, then turn her into my ghoul. I'm not going to ghoul Elena. A ghoul is too risky. I tell her to drop me off back at home. I'm not going to ghoul Elena. No one should be forced to join us in this endless existence. You're starting to get worried. The Masquerade is growing thin around you. Any more mistakes, and you fear that hunters will find you. And when they do, they will strike without mercy. Elena is clever and she can piece things together, so you can't hide the entire truth. You tell her that your blood holds power, that it will make her live forever as long as she drinks ... that the price is loyal service. Let's do it, Elena says. You open your wrist and Elena doesn't hesitate. She drinks, then leans back shivering as the Vitae courses through her, changing her. Take me home, you say. Your first order. Elena is not bound to you yet, but she wipes her lips and obeys. Nighthawk Tactical Custom Agent 2 $1,911, $4,050. Wealth, $13,394. I trade in my Springfield Armory XDM for $200 and buy the Nighthawk Tactical Pistol for $4,050. I check out the swords. I talk to Elena. I leave Covenant. Elena has entire cases full of knives, but most of her swords aren't worth a second glance. Nonetheless, you notice at least two worthwhile specimens. The first is a Bavarian M1869. With its squins removed, it handles like a frighteningly quick and elegant machete. You could lop a vampire to pieces with this blade. Only $270, Elena says, since it's been modified. A good deal for a good weapon, but then you notice the wakizashi. No one cool owns a wakizashi, Celeste, Elena says, blue eyes watching Yos over her railway glasses. Nonetheless, she unlocks the case and tosses you the scabbarded blade. Oh shit, it's the real deal. How old is this? You ask. Like 3 years. And it was made in Korea. Seems unfair that the Koreans take all the good pop music from Japan and now they're also making the best ninja swords. But it is the best. And you look like a woman who might actually kill someone with it. But yeah, it's not a collector's item, because it's new, and Korean, and I broke the other sword trying to open the trunk of an Altima. That's why it's only $3,150. You sweep it through the air. The wakizashi is a masterpiece. You practice a few draw cuts, confident that you could slice right through even the hardened skin of an ancient vampire with this blade. And you can afford it. Nighthawk Tactical Custom Agent 2 $1,911, $4,050 Bavarian M1869 Cutlass, $270 Wakizashi, $3,150. Wealth, $13,394. I trade in my Springfield Armory XDM for $200 and buy the Nighthawk Tactical Pistol for $4,050. I buy the Bavarian M1869 Cutlass. I buy the Wakizashi. I talk to Elena. I leave Covenant.